Sweet Christmas! It's Mozz, it's Chaz, and we really want to talk defenders. And what is the sound of one fist defending in our world of darkness? It is the path we walk towards. Don't get defensive. Hello once again, folks. I probably screwed up my intro this time because I couldn't remember exactly the way, but it is me, Charlie, the Professor Esser, your host here, as we try not to get defensive about the defenders. Because sometimes it's hard to defend this show, and sometimes it's hard to not defend this show. With me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz. So glad you're here once again. Today we are talking about worst behavior. Elektra's secrets are revealed. Danny changes his tactics. Matt gives Jessica some legal advice. Luke searches for the white hat. Directed by Peter Hoare, our writers this episode are, of course, Douglas Petrie and Marco Ramirez get a created by credit. Lauren Schmidt gets our written by credit. She is credited as Lauren Schmidt Hissrich. And Douglas Petrie comes back and does some writing on this episode. Okay, good for him. So, I'm trying to think. This opens up in...
the restaurant, the Turkish restaurant.
Yes. And it was kind of this weird thing to me. Where I think maybe Netflix is... Because, I always watch these shows with the closed captioning on. Because, I'm usually watching it on my phone. I'm doing whatever I got to do. And, it struck me that the closed captioning says background voices speaking in Indian.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. And I was thinking, well, that's interesting. This is supposed to be a Turkish restaurant. Why are they speaking Indian? Although, then again, maybe, you know what? Maybe it's just, hey, we're immigrants like anybody else. We're working in the kitchen.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they said the guys in the back were speaking, Spanish. It would have made sense,
It certainly would have. But we do get this little bit of Istanbul, not Constantinople, because, of course, our Alexandra, our Queen of the Hand, is referencing how good the food here is. And you can tell, man, it's an interesting thing when I think back to that episode of Jessica Jones, where they make the point about the restaurant, and he goes to the restaurant, and the restaurant, he likes his clothes, and then he makes the chef find the old recipe and get everything he needs, so that he can have the same thing again. And it just strikes me as you're watching this with Alexandra in the restaurant all by herself, and the panic of the chefs, if, even without the powers of mind control, if that is not getting a little bit of replay there.
Yeah, I feel like they know who she is and how powerful she is. And maybe that she has a temper or something. They seem afraid of her.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what really strikes me about it, is like, it does strike me as the kind of thing where, like, yeah, maybe there are restaurants where when your meal was not up to par, things ended poorly. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, but we do, the meal passes muster, and she gets informed that they now have the black sky. And we get the rebirth of Elektra.
Oh, great scene.
Yes. And it was interesting. I had actually thought that the substance actually, because when they make the point at the end of season 2 of Daredevil that they've prepared the urn. In the worst case scenario. And I always thought that meant that if Nobu dies, they'll bring him back with the urn. But actually struck me that it's like, no, I think actually what they're saying is if you kill the Black Hand, we can bring her back.
Yeah, the Black Sky. Just in case in our attempts, if she happens to die, we have a contingency plan.
Yes, and she does. We see her coming back. We see her sort of like a newborn fawn wobbling on her legs, and then commencing to kill people.
Right. What's interesting to me is when Harold Meacham dies and comes back, he has that little first couple of hours where he doesn't remember who he is, but he eventually, finds himself again. Elektra doesn't seem to have that. I wonder why that is.
Well, it's an interesting thing for this because it makes you wonder. The Harold Meacham question kind of makes you wonder, do they have more than one method to bring people back?
Ooh.
And it's an interesting,
yeah, because he was just in the bog and he came. He didn't have an urn or fancy blood.
Well, it seems like once you're brought back once, you get like the nanites in your system that just rebuilds you every time. Sort of that whatever the pseudoscientific explanation will be eventually. And I'm still not ruling out Kree technology because even though we've seen the whole thing and we know what the outcome is, there's actually an interesting weird knot about that in Marvel Comics lore that we'll address when we get to the final episode. But in this case, we see that there is a substance that's not just the blood that has to be used because there is this idea about the last of the resources used to bring the black sky. And this, of course, is why they're doing everything at Midland Circle because they need to get more of this resources and they know what's down there. But we do get a nice bit of Elektra growing. We see her looking at the weapons. And this is one of my favorite scenes there is when she's looking at the weapons and she looks at the size.
Yeah.
But she doesn't choose them. And I think that's a really important thing because I do think it is about how she's not ready to embrace who she was. But we do know, which we'll get to the end, that there is something of her still in there. Because
it's like glimpses of it shine through, but she doesn't know how to interpret it. Mm-hmm. She likes the size, but the weapon she ends up picking is infinitely cooler. Don't you think?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, she gets. Oh, I forget what you call it. It's the short. It's short swords of. I want to call them shurikens, but I'm not entirely certain if that's the correct.
The shurikens are the throwing stars.
Oh, okay. So they're putting that shurikens then.
But yeah, it's so cool because you think it's one sword and then it breaks into two. The mechanics of it, I'm so interested in. How does that work?
Oh, yeah.
Does it when it's one blade? Does it have one edge or does it have two edges? And what happens to the hilt and the handle? How do you hold it? How do you hold it when it's separated?
Yeah, well, it is. You know what it is? It's a weapon for showmanship.
And deceitfulness, and trickery.
Oh yeah, well of course, and that, but that's very useful in a televised show about fighting and punching.
And ninjas.
Yes, and ninjas, because you want that. It's interesting. Here's what I'll tell you: the interesting thing about ninjas is that most of what we think about ninjas actually have very little to do with historical ninjas and more to do with how ninjas were depicted in kabuki theater. So I certainly think that most of the weapons we think about as ninja weapons were actually just things that some prop master said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had a weapon that did this and this?" So sort of your basic Klingon bat'leth thing. Where if you actually thought about it, it's probably not the best weapon as a weapon, but it looks so bad.
That's that scimitar looking thing, right?
Yeah, well, it's a two-handed.
The two-handed,
scimitar that's like part bow staff, part sword. And someone actually explained that the real problem with the physics of it is that you tend to hold it underhanded. Actually, I think if you just held it overhanded, I think it's probably still a very useful weapon, but you lose the range of motion when you're overhanded. So, but that's why you see that a true bat'leth master will always be flipping it back between underhanded and overhanded. Because overhanded you get the power, but underhanded you get the move, and that.
Yeah, I just figured you would have one hand holding it overhand, one hand holding it underhanded, so you have sort of a bit more maneuverability.
You know what? You know what? In another universe, you could be a Klingon bat'leth master.
Hey, I'll take that.
There you go. But yeah, it's a pretty cool weapon, and we do see that she does, do what she does with it.
Yeah. It's interesting. In those moments where she's fighting and doing the little sparring against those other ninjas, she seems to find who she is, but only pieces of it. And I wonder if that has to do with the fact that she's involved in the act of fighting, so she finds that part of herself, or if that really points to who she really is as a weapon and not as, the personality that surrounded it.
Well, I think part of it is this idea of muscle memory. And, for those who are fans of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, there was this whole thing about muscle memory. And interestingly enough, the fact that Coulson, when he came back from the dead, actually was having difficulty because his muscle memory wasn't there. Part of that might have been because they had, rewrote his brain. And I wonder if in this system, what they're doing is, the idea is that, parts of you come back little by little. And for what it's worth, that was the second time Meacham came back. So Meacham getting himself back together a little more faster might have been because he had been through it once before. So it might be the first time you come back, you're really lost.
Right.
And if no one's going to really be honest with you, you might have a hard time. And there may have been all kinds of weird brainwashy things that go along with it. And there may have been some extra aspects to the ritual. We don't really know. We don't really, because we don't know how they brought Meacham back. We don't really know if something else was done for Elektra,
Right.
Really, I mean, one of the things that we can say about this is that for all of my, and I'm sure everybody's fan theorizing about what a black sky is, and I still haven't given up on my Inhuman Connection. It's out in theaters, and by the way, Phil Parrish saw it in the theater, says it is not bad.
Oh.
Actually says there's a lot of really good parts of it, So,
hey, I might have to check that out. I just signed up for Movie Pass, so I might have to check that out.
Oh, well, hey, yeah, if you've already paid for it, go see it, man. That's my
exactly.
If you're already in a situation where you're like, oh, I get to go see movies now because I've paid so much ahead of time, and then go see it because I heard it was really good. I heard from Phil now, and we were ragging on this show something awful. So I think he went in with real lowered expectations and still got them raised.
Oh wow,
and that's good. Yeah, well, I think here's what I always say about these things. And one of the things that I was listening to the Wait What podcast talk about the Defenders and its relationship with Iron Fist and this idea that what I've always said was that one of the problems that they've had on these shows is that they weren't being given the budgets they should have been because they put a lot of budget into the first couple shows. And I think they had to spread out the budget more and more as they went on because I think Netflix wants to keep these properties, which is a whole big thing going on right now with Netflix and Marvel.
Didn't they just pull all the Marvel movies now?
They haven't pulled them yet.
I thought I read something this morning. They're saying they're pulling all Marvel movies from.
What they're saying is that, yes, all Marvel and Star Wars movies will be going to the Disney streaming.
But they haven't done anything. Oh, they haven't set up a Disney stream yet. So I guess
they're affixing to is their point.
They're
affixing to do it, and they may well do it before you know. And but. From that perspective, it is still this question, this kind of important question of, are they really going to do it or are they still trying to negotiate with Netflix? It is this question, did they make their deal with Netflix to gain access to Netflix, steal their technology, and then go do it themselves? Or was their intention all along to merge with Netflix and make Netflix the Disney streaming service? We don't know because, companies do that kind of thing all the time where they will make a deal with a company, work with that company, and then basically just steal their proprietary rights.
Right.
Because, software is kind of like chocolate recipes. They're really hard. They're much harder than people think to copyright. Once you figure it out, it's really easy to change a couple ones to a couple zeros and still have it work,
Right.
But then again, it is this question, were they really trying to reinvent the wheel, or was their intention to move in with Netflix and, raise a family?
Mm.
Or, they actually took a peek at Netflix books and just said, you know what, we don't love you that much. A lot of questions in the whole Netflix Disney conversation right now, and we don't have answers here. But I do think that, I think one of the problems that Defenders does suffer from is that they're not necessarily given what they needed. And I do think that is the thing. I mean, I still love the show. I mean, and I still feel like these first few episodes certainly have such a cliffhanger, like an old RKO serial cliffhanger quality to them. Especially next episode. I think next episode has such a fantastic ending, but this one has a pretty good one. We get Danny and Luke Cage first meeting in this episode. I mean, meeting, like sit down and talk. And,
right.
Well, it is funny every time Danny Rand tries to explain himself. And I just love the, Conley Wing says there's a mystical city called Kunlun, and Danny Rand goes, I can speak for myself. There's a mystical city called Kunlun. and it just somehow sounds even more ridiculous when Danny says it.
Right. Now, you thought this scene was successful.
I thought this scene, here's what I'm gonna say. I don't think any scene with Danny Rand is particularly successful.
Right.
We make this comment about over at Capes and Lunatics about how the Defenders is really Seinfeld.
Right.
And Danny Rand is kind of the Kramer of the group.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of comes in. He doesn't really have any sense of social graces. He says weird stuff and just talks like he knows about things, and everyone else is like, you think so? And so I get Luke Cage's skepticism at him because, of course, he is giving a purely mystical. Hey, Benny. He is giving a purely mystical explanation for something in a world where really we don't have mystical explanations mainstream yet. Now,
we don't have that construct of logic. We don't understand the world in that same way.
I love you too, Benny. Hi. That's my son, Benny. He loves me. But, at the same time, this is a world in which the sky opened up and literally dragons and aliens poured out of,
Yeah, which makes, Luke's and Jessica's skepticism a little hard to buy,
Well, yeah, especially since they, too, are, like, kind of,
special.
Well, yeah, but, I guess what it is like they had chemicals spilled on them. And Iron Fist is saying, no, man, my powers just come from focusing my chi. And it just
earned them.
Yeah, I earned them. And, hey, for what it's worth, they may have been maybe feeling a little mad about that because it's like, what, you're saying I don't earn this? Or I'm just, And for what it's worth, you get that kind of throwback at, I don't think you get it here. I think it's next episode. When people do throw the shade at Danny, because next episode's all about throwing shade at Danny.
Right. And what's funny is, as much as I hated this scene, Danny Rand comes into his own in the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the scene in the Jay's restaurant. Yeah. He's engaging and charming, and as an actor, it seems like he's in the world for real, not an actor. This scene, however, it's just like cringeworthily bad. Michael Culture is a really good actor, is a decent actor. But when he's on screen with Danny Rand, I don't know what happens to him. He turns into a badass fake. And the conversations between them just seem like two guys sitting in different rooms reading lines for, an audition.
Yeah, well, you know what it is?
I wonder why that is.
Well, I think what is at issue is that they are having their conversation, and for what it's worth, I think that they're having. I'm trying to think of the word here. When they're having this conversation, they're really uncomfortable with each other.
Mm.
And they're uncomfortable with each other because they are alien to each other. And like I say, you think about it, Luke Cage, yeah, he lives in a fantastic world. He himself is fantastical.
Mm.
But his world is one where there's a guy in a little white coat to say this is why the fantastical world makes sense.
Mm.
From Danny's perspective, it's actually the exact opposite, which is here's this guy who I really can't hurt, for whom my Iron Fist. It's like punching him, but it's like when I punch a normal dude,
Yeah.
And it's really kind of weird to me that he's there, and it's not like this guy spent his whole life studying. Okay. It's not like this guy spent his whole life mastering his chi to gain these powers to become an Iron Skin. It's like, oh no, I just someone tried to kill me and it didn't work.
Yeah, it's interesting. All the other superheroes got their powers by an accident. He sought out his powers. It was a conscious decision to get them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that is why I think that is always the thing with Danny Rand. Is Danny Rand? He is different than everyone else because he is not. He is a traditional superhero. He is a guy who puts on the tights one leg at a time because he wants to put on the tights to go battle evil. It's kind of sad we don't have the original Iron Fist costume in this because it would make so much perfect sense with Iron Fist that he actually dresses up and puts on the whole I am the immortal Iron Fist, which he does constantly, He is every 13-year-old boy's dream come true, but of course that makes him immediately outside of this universe. Because, as I've said, he is an old school concept that kind of gets put into this modern context, and it doesn't necessarily. I'm not going to say that it doesn't necessarily work, but it does make for awkward conversation because his perspective is just so much universally different. Because he is a golden age hero. He is a guy for whom the idea that, we put on our tights and we go punch Nazis, or the Hand, or Hydra, is just second nature. He is, in that way, very much a Captain America type character. The only difference is that Captain America isn't this naive, isn't this socially awkward.
Right. I guess he had to grow up being in an actual war. It's hard to be that naive when you've been to war.
Well, yeah. Well, and for what it's worth, that is the difference. Is that for Iron Fist, yes, he was given the stories of war and the legends of war, and he was prepared for war. But he's never really fought in a war yet.
Right.
He's had a couple of fist fights, but that's about it. And, and it's a different world when you put on the tights to punch Nazis in an actual war. And it's a different world when every week you dress up to go punch Nazis, but there are no Nazis to punch. Just the idea that one day, oh boy, I'm going to show those Nazis. So yeah, but that is I think what it is. But for what it's worth, what we get from this whole conversation, because it is this episode, we get this idea of Luke Cage basically saying to Danny Rand, you say you earned your power. It's like, dude, you had power the day you were born, which is true. He was born with the Batman power. He was born with that super rich power. Had he just grown up as Danny Rand, who he probably wouldn't have necessarily used that power for anything other than evil. Or just been another privileged wastrel.
Right. And obviously there are, undertones that apply to the social sort of unrest that we're dealing with here, racially speaking. I mean, obviously there's racial undertones about having the power of being white. And they sort of skirt around the issue a little bit, which I don't think they needed to go any deeper than that. Yeah. But it was interesting.
Well, and for what it's worth, when you speak about white privilege and you talk about Danny Rand, boy billionaire, if anything else, it's a pretty good deconstruction of the concept of white privilege, because, of course, people that get mad when you call them out on their white privilege make the point, hey, I had to struggle too. And Danny Rand saying, hey, I had to live with monks and, pee in a bucket and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, but you also were born a billionaire, I mean, yeah, you had a temporary embarrassment.
Yeah, and then when it suited you, you up and left to go back to your high rise.
Well, exactly. I remember, in my old Catholic morality class back in high school, I want to say it was Father Paramount, made this point about how, you can't really understand poverty because you can only understand poverty if poverty is forced upon you. That and he says, look, I can go walk away tomorrow, and I can go be homeless, and I can go live on the streets and all these things. But the fact of the matter is, because I'm a priest, I am part of this international brotherhood, that the second I stop wanting to be a homeless person, I dial the local parish and say, hey, it's Father Paramount, can I come in, take a shower, and take a nap, And, of course, they will take me in. And this is the concept of privilege. It's not that you don't have struggles. It's not that you don't have these things. But it is this idea that so many things you get to choose when you have those struggles. And for many other people, those choices are much less, are made for them beforehand. And, for example, Danny Rand chose to earn his powers.
Right.
Luke Cage didn't choose to anything. He got freaking thrown into a vat and, is only in this whole mess because he's trying to keep his friend from getting shanked.
Right.
And, because he has those connections to people.
Yeah, his only currency was his own body and his own soul.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's not a choice if you don't really have a choice.
Right.
And I think that's what the moral of the story there is, if we have any. Okay. So this does come to our culminating scene, which is all of our gang gets together. And because they all know they have to go to Midland Circle because everyone has gotten their little hints, Jessica doing her investigation goes to the architecture firm and says Midland Circle. Daredevil just follows her because he's a nosy type. Luke Cage. I'm trying to remember what. What sent him to Midland Circle? I'm trying to remember what that was.
I don't know why Luke ends up there.
I remember now. Yes, because he goes to the grandmom's or the mom's house when he puts the scratchers in her box and he sees the wad of 50s and the parking ticket from Midland Circle.
Yeah.
And that's how he knows we're there. And then we get the "Oh, my babies is dead," which is that's sad.
It must have been like a crown in her hat or a feather in her cap. That scene. It's like every actor's wet dream to try to do a scene like that,
Oh, well, I guess so. I mean, I didn't.
Like it's so much emotion and so much that you have to get to give, and you're the center of attention in that moment. It's like, oh me, oh my, And you really get to lay into it, and boy, does she ever.
Yeah, she certainly does lay into it. Like I said, I'm not 100% certain that. Like I said, I don't know. The use of the wrong tense in the verb to be is always a weird thing for me. That all her babies is dead rather than my babies are dead.
Right.
It's like, I don't think I really got from this point that she doesn't know her proper verb tenses. But that's because I'm kind of a grammarista.
Right, but at the same time, if she had said, "My babies are dead," some people would have been like, "Hey, a woman living in that kind of neighborhood, growing up in that kind of way." I don't think she would have said it that way.
I mean, that is the constant debate about the verb to be. This is why this is the racial minefield
Right.
of trying to tell people stories, because at what point is it a
Caricature.
at what point is it a caricature, and at what point is it authentic? And
Mm,
it can be
mm,
hard to tell, and
right.
it's the Mandarin conundrum, Do we
Mm.
get George Takei to play the Mandarin, or some great Japanese or Chinese or Tibetan actor or whatever, and same thing with the other thing, and feed into that stereotype, or do we try to change the dynamic of it?
Mm.
That's the question. That's the conundrum. And what we find is, no matter what you choose, you chose wrong.
Right.
you know. Okay. Anyway, my phone's been trying to install an update for like a week now, and I just
Oh
deleted a
boy.
bunch of things, and it still can't. So it didn't work. Oh. Anyway, but
The other interesting scene, I think, before we get there is Stick, who is in custody.
mhm.
And Alexandra is, talking a bit of smack to him, and he lets her know, "Hey, I can smell your dying body. I know what's going on with you." And at that
Mhm.
point, Elektra enters, and that's a great little scene. Stick is such a badass.
Yeah, but the hand removal was very annoying to me.
You thought so? How come?
Okay, first off, to get out of cuffs, if you're gonna cut something off, all you have to do is cut off your thumb. What holds
Ooh.
your hand in a cuff is that you have the thick thumb, and that's what it catches against,
Right,
is the edge of the thumb.
right.
If you didn't have a thumb, you could slip right out of cuffs.
Hmm.
Um,
Although, I mean, I guess it was, the speed of things and the speed of consequences is so fast, and your time that you have to react and make a decision is so short. You got a
yeah,
sharp thing, and like you just go, I guess, and that's sort of just speaks to how little he cares for anything except defeating the hand.
well, yeah, and that's certainly the argument. I'm just saying, first off,
That
what I'm
and
gonna say is how do you get to be a ninja master and don't know how to just dislocate your thumb and get out of handcuffs?
yes, it's true. It's true.
How does he
Yeah,
not know to just, like freaking Black Widow? Black Widow
yeah,
does it all the time. Just
yeah.
and
But at the same time,
takes
it's
it off
like.
the cuffs.
But it's also kind of like he's been dealing with a severe handicap for most of his life. So the idea of being without something, it's like it's something that he is comfortable with going
Oh yeah.
without and making his way. So I don't know if it was such a big deal to him. And it's interesting. It kind of made me think of. Have you ever read The Dark Tower?
No, I have not. Nor
Oh,
have I
because
seen
in
the
the
movie yet.
yeah, the movie is what it is. But there's a great scene I think in the third book, The Drawing of the Three. He wakes up on a beach and these giant lobster creatures have come, and he's a gunslinger. The trade he plies is his guns. That's who
Mm-hmm.
he is. And these lobster creatures come up and bite off his first two fingers. So
Mm-hmm.
now he has to, for the rest of the story, learn to shoot his gun upside down so that the butt is facing up and the barrel is on underneath, and he shoots it with in a different way. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's just about a hero finding himself regardless of what situation is put on him, and it sort of made me think of that, and I thought it's pretty badass.
I'm not saying it's not badass.
Mm,
I'm
mm.
saying that it wasn't the most practical way to handle it.
Well, yeah, well, yeah.
That's my thing. It's not. No one denies it was badass. I think everyone agrees that was a pretty badass thing Stick that did there. But I think that in his doing so, it kind of belied that. Like I, like I said when I first saw it, it's like, couldn't you just use the metal of the sword to snap the cuffs? I mean, isn't the sword? It just struck me that it just seemed like there were lots of other ways out than that. But then again, I guess maybe
Mm.
like you say, it was just the most the quickest, most effective way, and he is, in the middle of a fight, and so I guess that makes some sense. It's just that, that's a major, major thing. You just severed many, many important arteries, and you're going to be lucky you don't bleed to death in 5 minutes trying to get out of it. So it's like, but he makes it. He does make it all the way to Colleen Wings. So, yay, Colleen Wings. And then, of course, we get our final confrontation because Danny does take the words of Luke Cage to heart, that he actually has power beyond just his glowy fisty thing. Yeah. And that he maybe should use that superpower of money to defeat the Hand. And, of course, he goes in and makes his appearance.
And again, he just takes things way too literally.
Well, the problem is that he, goes in to say, I'm a rich guy, and where we'll bury you. Now let's fight. It's like, no, the point is you're not going to, because it's like, he could have walked in as Iron Fist too, he could have, but everyone else does that. Right. Everyone else, they do not have strong, for a place that's run by the Hand, they have real lax security.
Right,
because about 3 other super people just run right up.
Yeah,
and nope.
But the scene that bugged me is when he goes into Rand Enterprises to try to get some information. And there's no tact. There's no sort of hiding his motives or intentions or being sneaky, or using his power to get, he just goes up, hey, I'm looking for the Hand. Have you heard of him?
Yeah. And what I'll say is, if I'm going to be at all fair, at this point, they're used to that. This is...
Oh, he is Danny Rand, right.
Yeah, he is Danny Rand. He is, honestly, that he showed up in a suit today, the job is you humor him, you give him the information he wants, let what's our Meacham's name?
Harold.
Let Harold handle it, just let Harold know that he came by.
Yeah, you know what? I can buy that.
We gave him the information like we're supposed to. We just let it go, didn't let him go talk to any reporters or anything, so we're okay there. But yeah, just keeping Harold abreast of what Danny Rand in his crazy Kramer-esque ideas and plans are. It's important that you keep him abreast. But he does go up, and of course, we get a nice bit with Alexandra about how this time she's not going to kill the Iron Fist. So, I don't know about you. Is it weird to you that there's such weird age differentials between all of the members of the Hand?
Yes. And apparently they escaped at the same time from Kunlun.
Yeah.
And which makes me wonder, it's like they couldn't be keeping the same body for those hundreds or thousands or whatever number of years that they've been out.
Yeah.
Or can they? Or do they switch bodies? Or what is the deal there?
No, I think the implication is that they keep the same body. I think it's always the same body. I think if there's going to be something to be said about it, it is perhaps Gao and Alexandra are more willing to let themselves age. I can imagine that maybe that showing signs of age is more because there's 2 possibilities. Is that one is that they're at the age that we're at. Except we know from Harold that when he went through, he went back to being where he wanted to be.
Huh.
And so perhaps what it is that for Alexandra and Gao, there is more to it than just the vanity of immortality. Whereas for all 3 men, there's a lot more vanity involved in their immortality.
A lot more ego, a lot more bravado, a lot more peacock feathers,
Which also explains why they are the subordinates to both Gao and Alexandra. Although, like I said, it's still weird seeing Gao be subordinate to Alexandra.
Yeah.
But, their relationship is neat. I mean, honestly, I think that was a real misstep. I really think they should have made. I mean, I think Gao should have been the thumb of the hand, but I guess they felt they'd already introduced her, and they didn't want to suggest that the leader of the hand was always, right there in front of everyone.
Right.
Although we'll see what happens at the end, because we do see from the way the series ends, there's something very interesting going on.
Yeah. So, that, and I think Gao's character took a hit with how poorly it was displayed in the Iron Fist series. That they're like, okay, we can't all of a sudden say, oh, she was defeated by a third grader in that, in the Iron Fist show, and now she's going to be the head of the hand. I think they did a huge disservice to Gao's character with that series.
I think what we've been seeing is Gao. Well, here's what I'll say about Gao. What we see for Gao is being dealt blows by the changing world. The rise of the superhumans have been hitting Gao because Gao, I think, was much more powerful in Daredevil.
Right.
And basically we've been watching Gao's slow decline over this series. But I think the point isn't that she's declining, it's that she still winds up surviving. And I think that's supposed to be our takeaway for Gao, is that she survives regardless. And who also survives are our defenders, because we do get our big fight. Oh, okay, Tristan. Memory. I don't know. He got so disappointed. He put on his 5 Nights at Freddy's costume because he thought this was one of the ones we do with video. Yes. So, moving right along, we do get our big fight. We get, first off, all of the board members of the hand, who are really just low level thugs anyway.
Right.
And Danny basically mops the floor with them fairly quickly. Punches that woman right in the gut, which I like that he's not pulling punches. They didn't do any, I can't hit a girl. No, it's like, you come at me with a thing, I'm going to punch you no matter who you are,
Yeah.
Because, we're not going to play any games with this. We're going to deal with this, that I'm being attacked by the United Colors of Benetton, and I will fight them all just as anyone would. Though we do get, but this of course leads to our big heroes coming together. We get that great scene of Luke Cage bursting in.
Another Hulk moment.
Oh yeah, well that is just amazing, and he bursts in. Now of course, how we know? Well, I guess he hears the ruckus, but like how he knows to go to the penthouse and all that kind of stuff. I guess, and some of it makes some sense, because it is this idea that obviously the boss is on the top floor.
Right.
So let's go up there and, I hear ruckus. Let's go see what that is. But he busts in. And see, I actually like the dynamic between Luke and Danny. And yes, it's awkward right now. But I think as the series progresses, we really start to get our Power Man and Iron Fist. To the extent that I honestly think that the Iron Fist Season 2 is going to be Power Man and Iron Fist.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any other way to do it, because I don't think Iron Fist is a strong enough character in this universe to be just Iron Fist. Not for nothing, Iron Fist was never as strong a character as people like to think. Iron Fist is one of those characters that you liked in a poster much more than you liked in his books. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of Iron Fist defenders who are going to go take that back, and you don't know what you're talking about. But my honest opinion is that Iron Fist is always kind of he was a gag character. He's a kung fu character from the height of kung fu.
Right.
And that's what he is. He is a kung fu character from when kung fu ruled everything. He's the white kung fu character from when kung fu ruled everything. But I think the idea that, I do think that when we get to Iron Fist 2, it is going to be Power Man and Iron Fist. Or maybe Heroes for Hire, or Iron Fist Heroes for Hire. whatever it's going to be, I do think we're going to be moving towards that. We do know that in Luke Cage season 2, we get 1 second. Tristan, leave the TV be. Lay down if you want to. Because I want you to fall asleep. You can either watch that or MSNBC. I tell you, nothing puts them to sleep faster than Rachel. Okay. Yes, this is my domesticity in the background, kids.
Oh, that's great.
We do get a nice fight. And I do love Luke Cage, and the bullets going up off of him, and Danny Rand standing behind him. That's a pretty cool scene.
Yeah,
and that's a pure comic book poster scene right there, And,
absolutely.
When we get, and then we get, Luke. One thing I do got to mention is like when Jessica says she has pictures of
Matt.
Of Matt
scaling buildings,
and he smashes her camera. And all I could think is, wait, is she using a film camera? Because that should be on the SD card,
right? And you can't.
And I think maybe she plays it like, oh, you destroyed my camera, and it's like, let me pick up that SD card. You blind guy, you don't know how cameras work, do you?
That's funny. I did not pick up on that at all. I didn't pay attention, but you're so right.
I'm gonna wager that's gonna come back, where she actually has pictures of it, where she's gonna say to him, "It's like, listen, Matt, it was a digital camera. You smashed my digital camera. You broke my camera. You ruined my camera. But all the pictures are there."
It's another one of those. The files are in the computer.
Yeah. But in this case, literally, they were. It's like they're right there. So anyway, so that's that. But they do go up, and I do love that. Matt runs up all the stairs. Runs up what, like 50 flights of stairs or something? and then he gets up there, and Jessica gets out of the elevator. And it doesn't, but again, I think that is maybe kind of the point of all of this. It's just that, how often guys will be the peacocks.
Right.
And isn't that just kind of the point? We've got to run to battle. I've got to be the immortal Iron Fist. I'm going to let you shoot me with the bullets because I'm just that tough. And Jessica's just like, I'm going to take the elevator and...
I'll see you guys up there.
Yeah, I'll see you up there. Anyway, I'll get a nice fight. Then, of course, Elektra does show. The Black Sky Showdown. And this does lead to her having Matt at a disadvantage. And then Matt recognizes her.
Right.
My life will be happy and peaceful.
Wonderful. Tristan's life will be happy and peaceful according to his fortune cookie.
Hey, all right.
Yes.
MSNBC it is.
Yes. Should be a great jump in for next episode. Any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
No, I thought it was a great episode. In that you finally get the culmination of the Defenders getting together, and I love that it ended with that teaser scene of all of them in an elevator. Mm-hmm. That was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And the fighting. I've got to bring this up again. The fight choreography. They have really, really stepped it up a notch because it's sort of, how like poetry can be too poetic sometimes. It can pull you away from what the poet is actually trying to say in trying to say, hey, look at how fancy I am with my words, Mm-hmm. And sometimes fight sequences can get that way. Now, this sequence that we saw in the boardroom was sort of like a perfect blend between being showy and still making sense. Everything that they did made sense and flew one to the other, but there was such a beautiful ballet to it. Your eyes were led across the screen with every movement that led into another piece of action that was happening. And it was choreographed so beautifully and so well, and I'm really, really impressed by how much further along they're coming with their fight sequences.
Yeah, it really was an amazing fight. I mean, and just every aspect of it. You always love that Jackie Chan style where you grab someone else's weapon to use it against them.
I have no lucky numbers here.
Okay, well that's because we already got our lucky numbers, so we're already lucky. Okay. Anyway, yeah, but I always love that when Jackie Chan would do that in a fight scene. He'd grab that thing that you had and then he'd flip it around and he'd use it against you, and we see that with him with darts and or like turning the guy's gun around and shooting the other guy with it. It's like really great when he does that. And then I love and you gotta love the sound cues still, man, because Luke Cage bursts in and suddenly the bass comes up. And it's like, we ain't in Kunlun no more, or Kunlun no more, we are going to be showing you what a superhuman can do against you Kung Fu fighters. And that is great. And, the fights are great. I thought Elektra and Matt were great. I mean, that boardroom is just such a show. Jessica doesn't know Kung Fu still, and that becomes a running gag throughout the next 2 episodes.
So it almost feels like they were expecting him in that boardroom, which makes me think that woman at Rand Enterprises that gave them that information was probably like, hey, Alexandra, Danny Rand was over here. I think he might be coming your way.
Yes, well, and for what it's worth, they obviously keep a lot of, assassins in that top. I guess that's why they have such low security.
Because they knew he was coming.
Well, no. I was going to say, because when everyone on the top floor is a hand assassin, do you really need a rental?
Fair enough, yeah.
It's like, yeah, come up, and, we're not going to cause you any problem just for wandering up here. If you're some, if you're some Greenpeace organizer running up here to say, meet his murderer, we'll let you say meet his murderer and then we'll let you leave. But if you start causing problems, we are more than capable of handling it very quickly. And I think that's probably what was at play here. But anyway, it was a great episode. I really think the Defenders are coming together very well. This is we're almost half done with the season, and I think it's going nicely. Not everyone agrees out there in the internet world, but there's a lot of haters in the internet world. Like I said, I think that one of the things about Inhumans is I think Inhumans is actually going to be a lot better than people think. But right now, because it's socially acceptable to pile on, I think people are piling on. And I think that after Iron Fist, I think people are feeling it's good to pile on Defenders now. Anyway, so Mozz, if anyone would like to talk to you about this show, about anything in the Marvel universe, the Netflix universe, the fighting universe, or just pretty flowers that you look at and smell on Instagram, how can they find you?
You can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way the way our Mozz and Poz once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet the Inhumans and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And probably Gotham, which is another show I like. Charlie Esser, that's CharlieESSER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. Thank you for sticking around for another long episode of Don't Get Defensive. Always remember, the best offense is to get defensive.